Good morning, Kuhner country. As we're buried under at least a foot of snow, at least where I am. Actually, it's over a foot. And much of the country is dealing with one of the biggest snowstorms in decades. What is happening now in Minneapolis over the next 3 days will go down in the history books. There is no question now, no question, that we are facing an organized insurrection, I'm choosing my words very carefully, that is now being orchestrated from the very top of the Democratic Party. This is not speculation. This is not conjecture. This is, in fact, hard facts and evidence. And so what happened is as follows. As many of you know, on Saturday morning, an individual, 37 years of age, and the media keeps repeating this talking point over and over again, an ICU nurse. They keep going on. He was a nurse. He cared for veterans. ICU nurse. Because they're trying now to gin up as much sympathy as possible for the insurrection that is now being done in front of our eyes. His name is Alex Preddy. He was, by the way, contrary to what the media is telling you, he was not just some innocent bystander, this innocent nurse who just showed up at a protest while ICE was conducting a targeted operation against a violent, criminal, illegal alien from Ecuador. He was part of an organized ICE Watch network. In fact, he's a rabid leftist, a staunch anti-Trumper who donated to Act Blue. He's an activist. But more than being an activist, Alex Preddy was part of an anti-ICE Watch network where they are there in Minneapolis, funded by George Soros, in which their job, they call themselves the Wolf Pack, is to chase and track and then confront and obstruct and impede ICE agents, Customs and Border Protection, federal officials from doing their jobs, from detaining, arresting, and capturing violent, dangerous, criminal, illegal aliens. And so this anti-ICE activist, this anti-ICE agitator, was there Saturday morning as ICE engaged in a targeted law enforcement operation. He had a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. He was armed. The gun was loaded. He had 2 magazines armed. Each magazine contains 21 rounds. While ICE was in the midst of an arrest, in the midst of trying to go in and capture this violent illegal alien Ecuadorian, this ICE Watch team struck. They're trying to provoke ICE. That's their goal. Provoke, escalate, cause an incident, have it filmed, videotaped, and then drive public opinion against ICE and spark more protests, more riots, more insurrection. A woman began to confront ICE agents in the midst of an arrest. They then used pepper spray on this crazy activist. Now, Preddy, unbelievably, he's filming this in the middle of the street, walking closer and closer and closer. Then, when they start spraying this woman, who is clearly impeding ICE, in fact, she was being arrested in the midst of an arrest, he then puts himself in the middle between the woman being arrested and the ICE agents trying to make the arrest. The left is saying he was protecting a woman. No, she was resisting arrest. She was obstructing and impeding and blocking ICE, which is a federal crime. You can't do that. Now, I want you to think about this. Who goes to a protest with a gun? I don't. How many rallies have I held? How many? I don't come with a gun. I don't come with an armed, I don't come armed. I don't have a loaded gun on me with extra magazines. I come with a sign. That's what most people do. So this guy who comes with a gun, armed with 2 magazines, then decides to insert himself in the middle of a scuffle between ICE and these are his fellow activists? And you don't think this is going to end badly? Genius. He then is being arrested himself. He starts to resist arrest. Now, why was he being arrested? Because now he's obstructing and impeding federal law enforcement in a lawful arrest of an activist, which is preventing them from executing their raid. In the midst now of him being put to the ground, he's resisting arrest. In fact, he's scuffling with police. They spot the gun on him. It's loaded. One of them says, gun, 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 gun. And then what is very clear in the video, I've seen it 100 times, different angles, slow motion. You have to watch this in slow motion. It is very clear. Alex Preddy is on the ground, on his knees, refusing to be arrested. He's resisting arrest. And then with his arm, he starts to go for his gun. He clearly is going for his gun. And then a shot rang out. A shot rang out. And then one Customs Border Patrol agent, the moment someone said a gun, 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 he had his sidearm pulled out because now we've got somebody with a gun. And the moment that shot rang out, boom, 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 return fire. And Alex Preddy is dead. He died on the spot. They tried to get him medical aid. It was no use. And by the way, even then, as they tried to get medical aid, you had gangs of protesters descend, attacking these ICE agents, blocking the ambulance from getting there. They were swarming these people, basically overrunning a scene where this man was killed. This is how out of control everything is getting in Minneapolis. Now, there's no question in my mind that this was clearly a legitimate self-defense shooting. There's no question. Now, the only question is, who fired the first shot? He had what's called a SIG 320 handgun. Apparently, I'm just going by the New York Post and other media outlets, they say a SIG 320 handgun is notorious for accidentally firing off. Okay, especially if it hits the ground or you're banging on it or you're tapping on it. It doesn't have a mechanical safety. It's got a very light trigger. So the point is, what idiot has a loaded gun? Loaded. And you go to a so-called protest as an anti-ICE a warrior and an anti-ICE agitator, and then you run to someone and interfere ICE in the middle of an arrest, and then you resist arrest yourself? And then you're on the ground, stupid, with a gun? You just say, hands up, hands up. You submit, hands up. No, he's fighting them. And, of course, he got killed. Now, after this happened, everything now in Minneapolis is out of control. There's no other way to put it. We no longer, Minneapolis and really the state of Minnesota, this is South Carolina now, 1860. They are no longer in the Union. I'm telling you, if no one else has the guts to say it, I'm going to say it. That's why President Trump, in a bombshell interview with the Wall Street Journal, this broke late last night, said he's going to re-examine everything about what happened in Minneapolis, the shooting, everything. Because now I think he finally gets it. He finally realizes the extent of what's happening. This is a full-blown insurrection. The mayor of Minneapolis without knowing any of the facts, without any kind of an investigation, came out and said this was an execution. Tim Walz, same thing, said this was an execution. They both said ICE now are the Gestapo, that they are Nazi Gestapo executioners who are going around literally shooting innocent U.S. citizens dead. On the streets of Minneapolis, they called for an uprising. And an uprising is what they now got. Thousands of Minnesotans, thousands of radical anti-ICE leftists got their moment. This is now their George Floyd. They got it. Okay, so after the fatal shooting of Alex Preddy, immediately you had the mayor, Mayor Fry, who to me now needs to be arrested. He is out of control. He is openly inciting riots, violence, fomenting insurrection. The same goes ditto for Governor Tim Walz, but you have others now. Amy Klobuchar, the senator from Minnesota, Ilhan Omar. Everyone now is just pouring gasoline on the fire. Thousands, literally thousands. We're talking sub-zero temperatures. And they took to the streets. Now, here is exactly what's happening in Minneapolis. They started to rampage, being egged on, told by Mayor Fry, by Walz, these are Nazi executioners. This is the Gestapo, an occupation. ICE agents now are just willy-nilly shooting people, executing people on the streets. Now they have inflamed the mob. And many of them are Antifa. They are professional activists, terrorists, and they now are taking their cues directly. It's all being, as J.D. Vance rightly said, this is engineered chaos. It is being orchestrated at the highest levels of the Democratic Party. Thousands of these rabid, and I mean rabid, agitators and vigilantes poured onto the streets of downtown Minneapolis. Now, I cannot, words do not describe what's happening right now. Hotels, they are smashing every window in hotels. Security guards have been beaten and assaulted. They attacked and viciously beat ICE agents and Customs and Border Protection agents. Agents now are being kicked in the face, punched in the face, stomped. There's a thing going on now where they're biting fingers off, literally biting fingers off. A DHS official was swarmed by a mob in which they began to bite his fingers. One of his fingers was completely bitten off. It's almost like a rabid dog. And he's never going to, the finger's gone. He's going to permanently lose his finger. Vehicles belonging to ICE are being smashed. They're being looted. The weapons inside are being stolen. And these are, very sophisticated weapons. And they're disappearing into the night. Now, shots are being fired at ICE or Customs and Border Patrol agents. They had to reply by using tear gas, pepper spray, pepper balls, flashbangs. There are now street fights. It is street to street, block to block. Antifa is now using rocks, projectiles, ice bottles. They are pelting ICE agents, Border Patrol agents. They have now set up literally barricades all across downtown Minneapolis. They're grabbing dumpsters. They're setting them on fire. They are grabbing vehicles, garbage trucks, you name it, overturning the garbage trucks and blocking roads completely, saying whose streets, our streets, whose block, our block. And so, like under the George Floyd riots, where you had autonomous zones set up in Minneapolis, in Portland, in Seattle, this is what is now taking place in downtown Minneapolis. Now, as all of this is taking place, ICE agents now say they feel completely overwhelmed. They are under siege. This has now been constant harassment and persecution, obstruction of them trying to do their jobs in arresting dangerous, violent, criminal illegals. Tim Walz has ordered the police to stand down. What is most obvious, what happened to Alex Preddy, is why wasn't there a security perimeter so that ICE agents, when they're in the process of arresting an illegal alien Ecuadorian, are not dealing with people who are going, like literally colliding their body with ICE agents, blowing whistles in their faces, blocking and obstructing them with their bodies. Wherever they go, they're going in front of them. To the point then that they have to push them away. And then when you push them away, they come back in your face. And then more of them swarm ICE agents. Had the police, local police, been there and made a secure perimeter, they would have gone in, grabbed this Ecuadorian who's wanted for violent assault. He's a very dangerous man, put him in a van, and off he goes. But that's not the intention. They want the police to disappear, to stand down. The police nowhere to be seen. ICE agents being beaten to a pulp. The police stand by and watch. Fingers bitten off. They stand by and watch. Hotels being destroyed. Stand by and watch. Businesses being destroyed and looted. Stand by and watch. Cars being smashed and destroyed. A dumpster set on fire. Streets completely blocked. Journalists now who are covering this are being attacked by Antifa thugs. The police don't do a thing. If you do call for 911, I'm not kidding, the first question they ask you, are you white, black, Latino, or Somali? That's the question they want you to ask. That's the question, forgive me, they want you to answer. Are you white, black, Latino, or Somali? Usually you can't reach anybody because Waltz and Fry have told the residents, if you see ICE, flood 911. Call 911. And so the police now are useless. Worse than useless. And the anarchists and the radicals and the terrorists and the vigilantes know this. Okay, agree, disagree. I want to hear from you, Kuhner Country. A couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Question number one, what did you make of the fatal shooting of the ICU nurse, as he's now always being called, Alex Preddy? Do you believe it was a justified shooting, yes or no? And even more important, and I hate to say that because every loss of life is very tragic, but what do you make of the response by Tampon Tim and the boy mayor, Jacob Fry, pouring gasoline on the fire, saying ICE now is not just an occupying army, these are Nazi Gestapo executioners, and they must be driven from the streets of Minneapolis and out of the state of Minnesota. Are we now in a full-blown insurrection in Minneapolis as rioters run wild? Dumpsters are being lit on fire, cars are being overturned, barricades are being set up, ICE agents are being beaten to a pulp. Some of them are even getting their fingers bitten off. Journalists who are there say that downtown Minneapolis resembles a full-scale war zone. Now, I want you to listen to the mayor and the governor. Now, remember, I want to stress this to you. This was less than an hour after the shooting, the fatal shooting of Alex Preddy. All of the facts had not come out. In fact, we still don't know all of the facts. We hadn't questioned the officers involved, get their accounts, talk to witnesses. What did they see? None of that. It was a rush to judgment. Listen now to Jacob Fry talking about the fatal shooting of Alex Preddy. And here's what Fry had to say. Roll cut 15, Mike.
More than 6 masked agents pummeling one of our constituents and shooting him to death. How many more residents, how many more Americans need to die or get badly hurt for this operation to end? How many more lives need to be lost before this administration realizes that a political and partisan narrative is not as important as American values?
Now notice, they're playing up the fact that they wear masks. You see, they dox them and threaten to murder and kill them and their families. And then presented somehow, well, my God, they're wearing masks because they're so sinister. And then notice, they pummeled him. They pummeled him. Well, no, he was resisting arrest and he had a gun. Notice he conveniently leaves out the fact that he was armed to the teeth with 2 magazines and a 9mm semi-automatic. And they were trying to disarm him as he in the process of arresting him. And he kept resisting arrest and he was violently fighting back. See, notice, all of this is left out because the narrative is it was an execution. Roll cut 15A, Mike.
I'm done being told that our community members are responsible for the vitriol in our streets. I'm done being told that our local elected officials are solely responsible for turning down the temperature. Just yesterday, we saw 15,000 people peacefully protesting in the streets, speaking out, standing up for their neighbors. Not a single broken window, not a single injury.
Whoa. Are you looking at the same images that everybody else is? Not a single broken window? There's nothing but broken windows all over downtown Minneapolis. What about the, what's amazing is, I don't want to get into the assaults on ICE. I don't want to get into the fact that they're throwing projectiles at them, punching them in the face, biting off their fingers, for God's sake. Okay? I don't want to even get into any of that. What is to me incredible is that whether it's Fry or Tampon Tim or Ilhan Omar or Amy Klobuchar or any one of these Minnesota Democrats, they act as if you're obstructing or impeding law enforcement from duly exercising their duties, i.e. making arrests, that's okay. That it's not a problem. That you can legitimately, in their view, interfere and block ICE, literally obstruct law enforcement in the midst of an operation to arrest murderers, gangbangers, child molesters, drug dealers, domestic abusers, like this guy they were trying to get on Saturday, this Ecuadorian. Like what? It's okay now to just obstruct law enforcement as they're trying to, arrest people? Like this is okay? That's what they go, these are peaceful protests. No, they're not. You're telling them, get in their faces, get in their way, obstruct them with those stupid whistles, block them, put cars in front of them, go body to body with them, stand in front of them, walk in front of them. By the way, warn all of these illegals, ICE is in your neighborhood, get out, get out, get out. It's a full-scale resistance. And suddenly it's like, what? It's all so peaceful. What? Listen now. They're pouring gas and more gas and more gas. Roll cut 15B, Mike.
The mass militarized force and unidentified agents who are occupying our streets, that is what weakens our country. That is what erodes trust in both law enforcement and in democracy itself. So to everyone listening, stand with Minneapolis. Stand up for America. Recognize that your children will ask you what side you were on. Your grandchildren will ask you what you did to act to prevent this from happening again. To make sure that the foundational elements of our democracy were rock solid. What did you do to protect your city?
I mean, he's calling for, he's inciting people to take it to the streets. He was inciting a riot, and he got a riot. Because right after, when he said, what did you do to protect your city, they poured out onto the streets. And then bedlam, mayhem, violence, chaos, rioting erupted. I mean, erupted. And you got people now going to the hospital. You've got maimed and injured ICE agents. You've got downtown Minneapolis. It's on fire. There's no other way to put it. It's on fire. Now, listen to Waltz. Tampon Tim, not to be outdone. So basically, they're doing the whole, the Nazis are in town. Did you side with the Nazis, or did you side against the Nazis? Here comes Tampon Tim. Tampon Tim. Now it's Anne Frank. Remember Anne Frank? Everybody used to read her diary when in high school, at least when I was growing up. This poor Jewish girl. It was in the Netherlands, and during the Nazi occupation, they hid her away from the Nazis, and eventually she was captured and sent off and killed. Well, now this is an Anne Frank moment. Roll cut 11, Mike. All right, I want to play it on the other side. Mike says we don't have time. So what they're clearly doing now is they're trying to foment massive, massive resistance, violence, rioting. It's an insurrection in order to cover up the massive sweeping welfare fraud scandal that the Democrats were involved in. And clearly, this is revolutionary. They want more chaos because it will give them more power. Okay, my friends, here it is, okay? Here is now Waltz. Now it's Anne Frank. It's now the Nazis are coming, and they're going to grab all the children and kill them. I'm not kidding. Roll cut 11, Mike.
Allow our children to go back to school. We have got children in Minnesota hiding in their houses, afraid to go outside. Many of us grew up reading that story of Anne Frank. Somebody's going to write that children's story about Minnesota. And there's one person who can end this now. And I'll go back to it again. Please show some decency, pull these folks out, reset this situation, and allow us to do the job that the Attorney General, myself, were elected to do, protect the people of Minnesota and carry out the laws of Minnesota. We'll be back with you when we get more information.
Okay, so they're Nazis. They're grabbing children. The children are afraid. By the way, these are illegals. Okay, that's what he's talking about. Illegals are afraid to go out of the house, to go to school. We have to coddle and protect the illegals. Now, notice what he says. Get out. By the way, that's the line now from every Democrat in every state. ICE, get out, and all deportations. Why? Because they want to protect their sanctuary status. They're trying to override and annul federal immigration law. It's an open insurrection. The source of the violence is Waltz. It's you. Don't blame Trump. It's you. And notice, I'm stating the obvious. Do you see any similar violence in Texas or Florida or Georgia or Tennessee or Virginia or Arizona? And by the way, Austin is a blue city. Memphis in Tennessee is a big blue city. I could go on and on. No, why? Because they cooperate with ICE. i.e., we want this triple murderer. You have him in your jail. Can you please hand him over to us? Sure. Come by. Here he is in handcuffs. We hand him off to you. Bye-bye. Or this is a child molester. He's just about to finish his sentence. He's an illegal alien. We want him. Can you please give him to us so we're going to deport him back to wherever, okay? Yeah, Guatemala. Okay, here he is. He's yours. Take it. Instead, they release them. This is what Minnesota is doing. Release them into the community so they can rape and murder and molest and assault again. They don't tell ICE anything. They won't even tell them where their last known address was. So now they have to go in there and track them down, which is much more dangerous for ICE. It's much more dangerous for the public. It's much more dangerous even for the illegals. And by the way, when they capture this person, he's usually surrounded with other illegals. So there's collateral damage. Because they go, well, we got more illegals here, we'll pick them up. If they just handed him over at the detention facility or in the jail or the prison, they wouldn't find all these extra illegals. I mean, if you're just being smart about it. But no, they want the chaos is the plan. The violence is the plan. They want shootings. They want so-called incidents. They want these people to die because they hope this will turn public opinion against ICE. Because remember, they're defending two things to the death. Their complicity in the massive welfare fraud scandal, which is going to land Waltz and Fry and God knows how many. Ellison, Keith Ellison, the state AG, Ilhan Omar, God knows how many Democrats in jail. Okay, that's number one. Number two, those are their voters. It's their power. That's why they're going berserk. Every illegal that is caught, detained, and deported is less power for the Democrats. It's one less client on welfare, and it's one less voter. So their voters are being kicked out of the country. That's why they're going berserk. And that's why this insurrection, by its very nature, must spread. Because if Trump succeeds in deporting 20, 30, 40 million illegals, the Democratic Party is finished for a century, and they know it. So for them, this is about power, and it's about a political fight to the death. That's why they're obstructing at every turn, even if it means violence, even if it means rioting. And my fear now is, even if it means tearing the country apart. Now, one last point, and then I want to go to you. 617-266-6868. The dear leader has now gotten involved. So you know they're playing at the highest level. Obama issued a statement condemning Trump, condemning Kristi Noem, and condemning ICE. It's an assault on our values, he said. It's an assault on our democracy. He then said that he stood with the protesters and the agitators on the streets. In fact, he didn't say just that he stood with them. I can read you a statement. That we take inspiration from them. That books will be written in the future about their heroism and their virtue and their courage and their bravery. And he says that he wants to see these are riots. He calls them protests. They're actually riots. He wants to see these riots in every major American city. He is now calling for national protests against ICE. The order has been given now. We're going to bring Trump to his knees. We're going to break him. He thinks he won the election on mass deportations and an immigration crackdown and securing the border. No. The dear leader is saying it's time to protect our people, our voters, our power. Take it to the streets. The insurrection is spreading. Now, furthermore, and I'm going to get to more into this because now you have literally members in other states. For example, the state attorney general of Arizona is now calling for residents and illegal aliens. We're going to play you the cut. To shoot ICE and kill them on stand your ground laws. Literally, the attorney general of Arizona, because they're about to conduct a big operation now in Arizona. You take away the illegals from Arizona, it's not a purple state, it's a red state. She's now calling on illegals and residents. ICE enters your home, shoot him in the face. ICE enters your car, shoot him in the face. ICE comes on your property, shoot him in the face. Understand your ground laws in Arizona. She says it now justifies shooting and killing ICE and ICE agents. The rebellion is spreading. The violence is spreading. Okay, this is all being done on purpose. Now, you need to hear this. I'm going to say this 2 or 3 times this show because it's the most important story of the entire weekend. The lieutenant governor of Minnesota, Moonbat, hardcore leftist, big waltz acolyte. Her name is Peggy Flanagan, has been caught red-handed on a signal message chat system. This is a system whereby on social media, they are sending messages to fellow left-wing activists to go after ICE. And in particular, it's a very sophisticated operation. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Minneapolis, if you can believe this, is being carved up into patrol zones by these anti-ICE agitators and insurrectionists. And they're being told, they monitor, and they're feeding each other information. They have people in cars who follow ICE vehicles. They have street patrols where these anti-ICE agitators walk on the streets. And then they're communicating with each other. Okay, 4 ICE vehicles on this block. All right, where are they heading to? They intercepted. Oh, they're going to go after this illegal alien. We need people at the scene now. Get bodies there now. Obstruct them now. Harass them now. Record them now. They're called wolf packs. Follow these ICE agents and then get bodies there to interfere with them. And they explicitly state, provoke, provoke, provoke. To get a reaction from ICE, even if it means getting yourself killed or shot. Do it. Because that makes ICE look bad and we can win the PR war. In fact, many of them have flags of Palestine forever. And they're saying what worked in the Palestinian territories is going to work for us. Show images of dead Palestinians, hungry Palestinians, Palestinian children, and people will start to sympathize with your cause. They won't ask for the context. On that signal message chat, and by the way, Alex Preddy was part of that entire signal message system. He was an anti-ICE warrior. He was part of the ICE Watch system. He was patrolling a zone in Minneapolis on Saturday morning with a team. That's why he was there filming. They want ICE to shoot people. Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan is not just directing people to go to certain areas to confront ICE. She literally said, quote, put your bodies on the line. Die for the cause. Every death is a propaganda victory for us. This must be the biggest story in the country. Why? Because what it shows, and this is what J.D. Vance was pointing out over the weekend, is A, it's an insurrection, B, it's completely organized, and C, it's coming right from the top. It's not people on the ground who are coordinating together. It's people on the top, from Waltz to Peggy Flanagan, the lieutenant governor, to Keith Ellison, to Jacob Fry, to Amy Klobuchar, to Ilhan Omar, who are telling these activists, get in ICE's faces, provoke them, harass them, hit them, assault them, resist them, and jackpot if any one of you gets shot or killed. Because then we can put hundreds of thousands of people on the streets and literally destroy Minneapolis and then say, look, it's Trump's fault. Provoke, escalate. Provoke, confront, escalate. That's their strategy. And this is all now being systematically planned and organized by the leading members of the Minnesota Democratic Party. There is no doubt about it. Peggy Flanagan was caught on this signal messaging system doing exactly what I just explained now. It's an insurrection. It's a planned insurrection that makes January 6th look like a Sunday picnic. And the question I have is, where's Pam Bondi? Where is the Department of Justice? Where is Kash Patel? And I'm sorry, I've got to take it now to the president himself. What more needs to happen? Mr. President, with all due respect, and you know how much I love you, in a non-sexual way, what is it going to take for you to invoke the Insurrection Act? Send the military on the streets. If local and state police will not provide security and a security perimeter for ICE to go after the most dangerous criminals, let the military then do it. And arrest Peggy Flanagan. This is terrorism. Waltz, this is terrorism. Jacob Fry, this is terrorism. Ilhan Omar, this is terrorism. Enough. Arrest them. Because here's the problem now. Obama is spreading the insurrection to the whole country. Janet Mills, we talked about Maine last week. Now, after the shooting of Alex Preddy, remember, this is all coordinated. This is all organized. Okay? This is a real conspiracy. They're working together, hand in glove. Janet Mills now has said ICE has to leave Maine, end all deportations, or else you're going to face mass resistance like in Minnesota. So Maine now is in rebellion. I mentioned Arizona's Attorney General. They're now taking it even one step further. Not only do they want ICE out and end all deportations, she's telling residents, including illegals, if ICE comes into your home, your property, or in your car, under Arizona, shoot him in the face. And we will not prosecute you. New Orleans now is rising against Trump. Memphis is rising against Trump. Chicago is rising now against Trump. New York, once they dig themselves out of the storm, Mamdani says he's putting 50,000 people on the streets. What I'm saying is, and by the way, Massachusetts is not far behind. Believe me. So what I'm saying is, like a cancer, this thing is going to spread to other states. Because they see it's working in Minnesota. If they can break Trump in Minnesota, well, let's break him in Maine. Let's break him in Illinois. Let's break him in New York. Let's break him in Arizona. Let's break him everywhere we can. There is still time to head them off at the pass. There's still time, because we're not seeing, thank the Lord, more cities exploding the way Minneapolis has exploded. But if this thing starts to spread to 6, 8, 10, 12 other states or cities, then, my friends, our union is in jeopardy. We're then staring down the barrel of 1861 Redux. And that's not just me saying it. That's a lot of people now saying it. One last point, and I promise I want to go to the phone lines. The Democrats now are going to shut down the government. Chuck Schumer over the weekend, along with Elizabeth Warren, and by the way, they're all calling it an execution. Not only are they calling it an execution, Elizabeth Warren now is saying that ICE are terrorists. Literally, what you're seeing now is terror. ICE is now a terrorist organization. And that they're going to be treated as a terrorist organization when the Democrats come back to power. Elizabeth Warren now says she, Chuck Schumer, other leading Senate Democrats are going to sink the DHS funding bill. It barely passed in the House. It's now in the Senate. You need 60 votes to pass the DHS funding bill. That's what funds ICE and the Department of Homeland Security. They're going to sink it. The Republicans said they're not going to allow it. It's going to lead to a shutdown. We're going to have a second Schumer shutdown. And it's going to be over funding of ICE. The Democrats want to abolish ICE completely. They want Kristi Noem impeached. And they want to reopen the borders. They're going for President Trump's throat. This must stop now. Because I'm telling you, if they're going to shut down the government and call for Kristi Noem's head and then say we're going to abolish ICE, defund Customs and Border Protection, essentially they want to return to the Biden invasion. We're on defense. They're on offense. The media is in their corner. They're inflaming the situation. Notice now how they have successfully demonized ICE. Look how much ICE is now hated and reviled. Because, I'm sorry, they were not getting enough PR protection from this administration. Who stands up for ICE? Outside at a press conference or two? Nobody. JD did a great job, but that was one time. Kristi Noem does a great job, but that's one or two times at a press conference. But the assault against them from the Democrats, from the media, it's relentless. It's relentless. And now they think they have enough support from the public to completely defund and abolish ICE. And if they defund and abolish ICE, you're never going to get a single illegal alien deported from our country. And that's exactly what they want. So my advice to the president, with all due respect, forget running Venezuela, forget the peace board in Gaza, who's on, who's off, forget all of that, okay? That you offshore to Marco Rubio. You've got to be in the command center in the White House, the Situation Room. Because, my friend, you've got a full-scale rebellion right here at home. And this rebellion is starting to spread like a prairie wildfire. For God's sake, invoke the Insurrection Act. I'm begging you. At this point, please, for the sake of the stability of our country, invoke the Insurrection Act. Send in 15,000 troops and haul off Fry and Waltz in handcuffs. You want to incite riots? You want to foment sedition? You want to stand there and threaten public order by openly defaming and lying about ICE? And literally being as incendiary and inflammatory as possible, which is getting people killed. Democrats have blood on their hands. Aaron in the great state of Nevada. Thanks for holding, Aaron. You're going to kick us off, and welcome.
Jeff, I have been wanting to talk to you all weekend long. Before I get to my rant, I just want to get 2 points across. Congratulations on your Patriots. And my Seahawks will see you there. The other thing I want to say is at the casino, I have caused a new fire. Every time my players lose at blackjack or they lose, I got the whole casino saying, ay, 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 ay. And everybody's saying, where did that come from? Okay, Jeff, I am so angry and frightened at the same time. You asked where Pam Blondie is? This sounds like a Babylon Bee headline. It's not. Fox News reports Pam Bondi will issue a strongly worded letter to Tim Walz. Are you kidding me? We are losing the PR war, Jeff. We are severely losing the PR war. I have a coworker at my new job. She's my neighbor as well. I am not making this up. She told me yesterday she's putting in a reinforced steel door. And I was like, oh, why? Because I heard there were some burglaries going on in town. She flat out told me, I don't want ICE to kidnap my children. It's like, are you harboring illegals? No, we're all U.S. citizens, but I don't want ICE to kidnap my children. It's like, they're not going to kidnap your kids. She doesn't believe me. She's that paranoid. Jeff, you mentioned Israel. The last 3 years, more Jews have died since the Holocaust. Why? Because of the propaganda. Israel may have won the war against Hamas, but they lost the PR war a long time ago. Every time Israel bombs anything, or every time Israel sneezes, the news media said 50 Palestinian children died from that. Same thing with Vietnam. Same thing when our veterans came back. Baby killers, baby killers. Now it's ICE and conservatives turned. ICE may be, just like Israel, they may be winning the war on deportations, but they've already lost the PR war. You would think Charlie Kirk's death would have woken up the GOP, but the GOP and even Trump is asleep at the wheel. They chant, ICE are Nazis, ICE are Nazis, baby killers, baby killers. Saying that it's okay to kill ICE or right-wingers is in of itself a Nazi argument. Because they keep saying, why did the Nazis do what they did? Because they said, there's Jews. They're not human. Now you have liberals and leftists saying, go ahead and shoot ICE agents. They're not human. ICE, again, they are not. They are deporting illegal aliens, criminals, murderers, rapists. You know what their punishment is? They go home. They're going back home. The worst of the worst go to CCOT. They are not going to death camps. We're not gassing them. We're not kidnapping children, as keeps getting repeated. And I am begging Trump and Vance, you have got to do an emergency press conference, and I want a YouTube video made by J.D. Vance. Sorry, Vance can speak better than Trump right now. I want a YouTube video going over every single myth, line by line. ICE are Nazis. This is why they're not Nazis. You're deporting lettuce pickers and doctors and innocent people. I kid you not, Jeff. I was on YouTube. The Democrats were saying they're deporting American citizens. One guy said that, why was he protesting? He said, they're going to deport union members next. They're going to deport registered Democrats next. That is how hyped up things are right now. They need to go on defense now. They should have gone on defense yesterday. Say, no, we're not deporting American citizens. We're not kidnapping children. Line by line, they need to counter point every single one of the left-wing news media's lies. But instead of saying nothing, I mean, when you say nothing, when they say, well, we keep calling Republicans Nazis, they must be Nazis because they're not saying they're not Nazis. GOP, wake up. Now, Trump, I will say this. Congratulations on getting access to Greenland. I'll toot Trump's horn here. With all the bad news of Minneapolis, I want to toot some good news. The GDP grew 4.4%. We have less than 5% unemployment rate. The economy's doing great. And again, I'm going to toot Trump's horn. But Trump, enough with Gaza. Enough with Venezuela. Stop going to Europe. Your house is on fire. Time to grab the water hose.
Well, as usual, you're on fire, Aaron. Aaron, I got to just go back to what you almost at the beginning of your call. So you're saying you have a colleague at work who wants to reinforce her door with steel because she says that ICE is going to come in and steal her 2 children, correct?
I'm not saying she's doing it. She's one of my neighbors. I saw her. She's literally taking the door apart, and she's saying she was buying a reinforced door past the screen door. And she said she doesn't trust the government. She is paranoid that ICE is going to kidnap her kids. And, she asked me where I stood politically. I just got straight to the point. I says, I am all for murderers and rapists and criminals being deported. Now, I'll say this to the Democrats, and even though you are absolute raving lunatics right now, this is my last olive branch to the Democrats. If you would just calm down and take a breath, and you say, we don't want to deport little Pepe. He gets straight A's in school. He's going to be a doctor. He's going to cure cancer. We can't deport him. If you want to give us names of a list of people who have not committed crimes other than being here illegally, we could talk, but you don't even want to do that. You want to say, no, rapists, they stay. Murderers, they stay. But again, the PR, they really, truly believe ICE is just kidnapping children at random. And she believes it.
Oh, I know. I know because I get the emails and the text messages, and the fear, the panic porn, the hysteria nonstop has worked. And I've been complaining for how many months now? I said, when they keep calling you Nazis and you don't defend yourself and you don't refute them, after a while it begins to sink in, well, maybe you guys are Nazis. And you have all these Republicans who just shrug it off and say, oh, this is so preposterous and so disconnected from reality, don't even take it seriously. Well, when your opponents charge you with something, when they accuse you of being something, you always have to refute the charge. That's the basic law of politics. And the Republicans are horrible at it. And, and now, look, I got to tell you, now it's everywhere. And I mean everywhere. ICE are Nazis. Trump is a Führer. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. Conservatives are fascists. It's everywhere. Look, I get emails now. There's no debate. You're a Nazi, you need to be killed. Me. You're a Nazi, your parents, your children need to be killed. Or your children need to be taken away from you. Because how could they have a Nazi as a father? And that's it. That's it. How could you say I'm a Nazi? I believe X, Y, and Z. Hey, I'm very pro-Israel. I'm a Semitophile. I admire the Jews. I love the Jews. You don't know what Hitler stood for regarding the Jews? Like, just to give you one example. I could give you a million. I believe in individual rights. Hitler hated individual rights. Hitler was a socialist. I'm a free market capitalist. I mean, I could go on and on. I'm the antithesis of Nazism. It doesn't matter. It's a whipped up, fevered, manipulated, brainwashed mind. And you're right. They're dehumanizing us. Because by dehumanizing us, okay, another fatal shooting in Minneapolis. This one of Alex Preddy. The media is going on about him being an ICU nurse. What they are omitting is that he was a rabid member of an anti-ICE group called ICE Watch. He was an activist, and he was told to be there at the time of that arrest, and then he interfered in the arrest as well as being resisting arrest himself while he had an armed weapon. He came there with a loaded gun, 2 magazines, full loaded, 21 rounds each, and refused to disarm when the police asked him to disarm while he was being arrested, as he was resisting arrest. And that's when, obviously, the fatal shots rang out. Now, my question to you, what do you make of the fact that Alex Preddy went to a so-called protest with a loaded weapon? Furthermore, he did not have his carry permit with him. Apparently he was a lawful gun owner who had a right to the gun. but apparently he did not have his carry permit, which is illegal in Minnesota. He had no identification at all on him, which is illegal in Minnesota if you're armed. You're carrying an arm. Remember, the gun was loaded. He was walking around with a loaded armed gun and magazines, 21 bullets. The suspicion among many who work at Customs and Border Protection and ICE is that, yes, he was there filming, but he was also there potentially to do maximum damage. That they believe that if, in their view, if ICE got out of hand, that maybe he then would have turned his weapon on them. Who goes to a protest with a loaded gun? Who goes to a protest with no identification? Who goes to a protest and then literally interferes with ICE, not just as they're conducting their targeted operation, but as they're arresting a fellow activist of his? And then he puts himself between the agents who are trying to arrest this woman and the woman. And then he gets pepper sprayed. And as he gets pepper sprayed, he then, and is being arrested, he is struggling with police officers, resisting arrest, got an armed gun, an armed weapon, and then he went for his gun. And what, you don't think something bad is going to happen? On what planet? His own father, it has now come out, his own parents, who, by the way, are left-wing activists, okay, rabid anti-Trumpers, but even his own father said, son, for God's sake, don't engage. Whatever you do, don't engage with ICE agents or Customs and Border Protection. So obviously they knew there was something not quite right in the head with their kid. He's 37 years old. He's a loner. He lives by himself. He's a social outcast in many ways. And he seems to have almost like a, not suicide by cop, but suicide by federal authority. And his father kept saying, okay, if you really got to protest, protest, but don't engage. He had multiple conversations. And what did he do? He engaged with a loaded gun. 617-266-6868. Mel in New York. Thanks for holding, Mel, and welcome.
Yes, good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Mel.
Hi. Yeah, it's quite obvious that, Fry and Walls and Omar, they're causing all this deflection to deflect from their guilt and their thievery. I can't, as you say, President Trump needs to invoke the Insurrection Act. I wonder if you could surgically shut down, cities with martial law instead of say the whole state of that, because there's innocent people and there's patriots that live in that state also that they don't want to be not being able to move freely and be under the stay under the gun of the or have to be able to, under the rule of law that has that has weapons that that are going to be utilized to keep law and order. So I'm just curious whether or not and as far as if that could happen, where you could do it surgically. But then again, to go back to what you were saying about the elephant-eared soy boy homosexual, because he even admitted that in his book Dreams of My Father that he experimented with homosexuality, Barack Obama. Like you say, it goes all the way to the top. This guy's he's got to be padding his pocket with all of our stolen tax dollars that is being funneled off, or he is skimmed off, that's being stolen by these Somalis. So and Omar, the politicians, all of them, Fry, Waltz, Omar, Obama. So I'm just curious, well, not curious, but it's got to be going to the top. But for President Trump to say a martial law in the city of Minneapolis and whoever in New York City also, because man, damn me, if his people are listening, he better not come north of the Thaddeus Kosciuszko bridge, the twin bridges that go over the Hudson here in Albany, New York. That goes
Mel, he's got bigger problems now. He can't even deal with a basic snowstorm. I mean, I'm not kidding. He doesn't know what to do. New York City is paralyzed. They're going to rue the day they elected this guy as mayor. He doesn't even know how to handle a shovel. He was trying to help workers shovel, do a little PR thing for the TV cameras, and you can tell he never shoveled a day in his life. So they can't even handle basic snow removal in New York City right now. I'm serious. So the whole city is completely shut down. They got a disaster for a mayor. But I want to go back to something you said earlier about martial law. Look, Trump needs to address the country. I don't know what he's waiting for. I don't. And this is what he has to say very clearly. Outside of Minneapolis, okay, this is in Minnesota. I'm talking Minnesota now. Local police outside of Minneapolis are defying Tampon Tim. They're cooperating with ICE against the orders of Tim Walz. And notice, because they're cooperating with ICE, you don't see the chaos and the mayhem and the shootings and the anarchy and the violence and the rioting. You don't see any of it. Why? Because at the local courthouse or the local detention facility or the local prison or the local jail or in the parking lot or wherever they do it, hey, you've got this convicted mass murderer, okay, from Laos or from whatever, Venezuela, whatever. We're going to deport him. Could you just hand him over to us? Sure, here he is. There you go. He's in handcuffs. They hand him over to ICE. ICE takes off the handcuffs, gives back the handcuffs to the local police. They put on their handcuffs, and off he goes. Instead of releasing that person into the community, and then ICE has to try to chase him down. Now, they're doing this in Florida, in Georgia, and just to give you a sense, 23%, Mel, think of this, 23% of all deportations, Texas. Why? It's a big border state. Okay, I could give you other states. Minnesota, 2%. 2%. So how come Texas has 10 times the deportations? 10 times of Minnesota. And yet they don't have anything resembling what you're seeing on the streets of Minneapolis. It's peaceful, it's stable, it's orderly. So they keep saying, oh, these ICE agents aren't trained. No, they're perfectly well trained. For some reason, they seem to be doing fine throughout the rest of the country. It's because you have a governor and a mayor, among others, and a lieutenant governor, as we've now found out, Peggy Flanagan, who are orchestrating and masterminding a deliberate insurrection, who want the violence and the rioting on the streets. And they want it to deflect and distract from their own deep involvement in one of the biggest fraud scandals in the history of the United States. Okay, it's beyond mayhem now in Minneapolis. They are setting up autonomous zones, barricades on the streets. It is sheer lawlessness. Riots broke out all weekend long. Thousands and thousands of anti-ICE activists, agitators, Antifa, literally professional agitators. They just now they are destroying that city. They lit dumpsters on fire. Cars are being vandalized. Hotels are being smashed. Security guards are being beaten. Listen now. This is DHS Secretary Kristi Noem holding a press conference after the fatal shooting of Alex Preddy. And she says what's going on now is beyond unacceptable. Beyond unacceptable. And she says it all stems from the inflammatory, insightful rhetoric. They're inciting violence from the mayor and from Tampon Tim. Roll cut 5, Mike.
We saw objects being thrown at them, including ice and other objects, and a rampant assault began, and even an HSI officer agent's finger was bitten off. Crowd control measures were deployed to bring safety to the public and to law enforcement at the scene. And once again, I want to remind everybody that this situation and this tragedy did not have to happen. Our law enforcement are doing everything that they can to protect the public. We're praying for this deceased loved one's family and friends, but we also recognize that the Minnesota governor and the Minneapolis mayor need to take a long, hard look in the mirror. They need to evaluate their rhetoric, their conversations, and their encouragement of such violence against our citizens and our law enforcement officers.
Look, she's very articulate. I love the job that she's doing. Please don't get me wrong. I like Kristi Noem a lot. Let's put it this way. She's 100 times better at her job than Pam Bondi is as Attorney General. Okay, there's no question. This is my only criticism, and it's a substantial one. Everything what you're saying is true. Waltz is being inflammatory. Jacob Fry, the boy wonder, is inciting and fomenting rioting and insurrection. So why aren't they in handcuffs? It's illegal. They're not just being reckless and irresponsible, and by the way, spreading dangerous lies about ICE and Customs and Border Protection. They're Nazis, they're Gestapo, they're executioners, they're mass murderers, they're illegitimate. Okay, what you're doing is you're dehumanizing them, and you're terrorizing the community into thinking they have to lash out. And that's why they are lashing out. This is deliberate. Now, I'm telling you, because it's obvious, there's an Antifa general, a self-styled general. Okay, his name is Kyle Wagner. He's now calling for his armed supporters to start murdering ICE agents, saying we're going to wage partisan guerrilla war. These are like wannabe communist revolutionaries. And they say we're going to wage partisan war against an occupying Nazi army, i.e. ICE. These guys are serious. They're not playing around. They're doing videos of all the firepower they have. They've got some serious weapons. Now, please, I don't want to see anybody else get killed. The last thing I want is to see anybody get hurt. But you're creating now such a pressure cooker and such a tinderbox. And I'm talking now about Waltz and Fry in particular. ICE agents are going to get killed. They're going to be shot. It's inevitable now. And that's what ICE agents are saying themselves. They're saying the public is not seeing the level of hatred, the vicious assaults, the attacks, the relentless intimidation, the death threats. They're pulling guns on us. We're being shot at. We don't know if a person has a phone in their hand or a gun in their hand. Everywhere we go, we're being driven out of hotels. We can't sleep at hotels. We're not being served in restaurants. They're coming up to us in restaurants and saying, get out, we're going to shoot you, we're going to kill you. They're saying our vehicles are being destroyed. Our weapons are being stolen from the cars. They're pelting us with rocks, with ice, with projectiles. They're throwing fireworks at us to light us on fire. I don't know if you saw the videos from last night in a freaking snowstorm. ICE agents beaten to a pulp, kicked in the head, kicked in the ribs, stomped on by these rabid animals. They're biting fingers off. An ICE agent is going to get killed. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And that's my only critique of Kristi Noem. It's like, you got to start putting these people in handcuffs. Like, enough is enough. And you don't just, I'm sorry, but you don't put in ICE agents and federal law enforcement and leave them twisting in the wind. There's no local police backup. In fact, the opposite. There's no state police backup. In fact, quite the opposite. So they're surrounded and swarmed. They're sitting ducks. I believe the only reason why ICE agents have not been shot, killed, or massacred, it's because it's like minus 10 degrees in Minneapolis. It's a tundra. It's so cold. And they're buried under 2 feet of ice, whatever, snow and ice. Okay, the way, I got a foot in my neck of the woods. But apparently in Minnesota, Minneapolis, they got like 18 inches, 20 inches, 2 feet, whatever. So only because of the cold and the snow are things not even much worse. The weather is our ally for now. It's like a war. Listen now to DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. She lays it all out. And she says in particular, the more you call us Nazis, the more of a target you're painting on ICE's back. You're fomenting a civil war, and you know it. And it's all to distract from their historic fraud and theft. These are criminals who are using people, manipulating them, putting their bodies on the line, getting themselves killed to protect their theft and their fraud. Roll cut 5A, Mike.
I'll remind you that Governor Walz today in his press conference said that our officers were not even law enforcement, which is a lie. He's called them the Gestapo. He's encouraged residents and citizens and violent rioters to resist. He's doxed their identities, putting themselves and their families' lives in jeopardy. He's refused to turn over murderers to federal law enforcement officers. He's protected illegal criminals and protected them from being brought to justice, and even overseen a historic, unprecedented theft of American taxpayer dollars. Tens of billions of dollars were stolen under his watch, and he allowed it to happen, and in some instances may have even facilitated it.
Bingo. She's completely right. Completely right. That's why they can't. Now it's a fight to the death. They have to now blow up Minneapolis. They have to have ICE leave with their tail between their legs and essentially break the back of Trump's presidency. We are going to kill your mass deportations. Our voters are not going to be deported. Do you understand? That's what they're telling them. You may have won on that issue. You may think you have a popular mandate. This is a coup. This is a coup. And they're trying to overthrow President Trump by essentially expelling him from all blue states and blue cities. That's what this is fundamentally all about. Now, listen to Kristi Noem saying, here, Memphis, Tennessee. It's a blue city, very blue city. So how come we don't, and we have ICE operations there. How come there's no bedlam, chaos, anarchy, rioting, shooting, people dying? Listen to her. Roll cut 6, Mike.
In other cities and states across the country, we don't see this happen. Local, state, and officials work with us to make sure that we're making their streets safer. I'll point to the city of Memphis, which is where there is a Democrat mayor in place. He worked with us and our federal law enforcement officers, and we saw murder rates drop by 50% because of that partnership. We've seen historic lows in the criminal acts that have happened in that city. We've had the same amount of law enforcement officers there, but a very different result because of the leadership in place. Last week, ICE did over 2,000 different operations, and we saw people be brought to justice and the American people made safer because of that work.
If they can do it in Memphis, in fact, let me just play one more cut, okay? She said, look here, it's not just Memphis, Tennessee. Here. She goes, Austin, Texas, very blue city, Democrat mayor. Florida, by the way, yeah, it's a red state, but they're Democrat mayors, blue cities. Miami now is a blue city. How come you don't see this there? Roll cut 6A, Mike.
We don't have this problem in Texas or in Florida because those individuals in those states work with us and they make sure that they keep peace and calm while they bring criminals to justice. In Minneapolis, Governor Walz and Mayor Frey, they instead choose violence. They instead choose to encourage the destruction of their city and the crime against their people. It appears that they want this lawlessness to continue. It appears that they want chaos to distract from the theft and the fraud and the corruption of their city. I'll remind you that this city has been corrupt for years with what we've seen with people that have been stealing taxpayer money, all under the leadership of Governor Walz and Mayor Frey.
That's why they want the violence. That's why they want the lawlessness. It's called CYA, cover your cover your rear end. Now, again, she lays out the case very articulate, very cogent, very clearly. But it's almost like, look, they're criminals. And they're not going to stop. And they keep breaking the law. And they're putting everybody's lives in danger. And you've got 2 people dead. And the body count keeps going up. When are you going to arrest them? Like, what do they have to do to get arrested? What do Walz and Frey have to do? Now, I want to play one more cut. And this is the cut that even has many conservatives disagreeing. So I want to play it, give you the poll question of the day, and then I want to go right back to the phone lines. Kristi Noem is asked by a reporter, well, did Alex Preddy, was he brandishing the weapon? In other words, what was the justification for shooting Alex Preddy? Listen to Noem lay out blow by blow why Alex Preddy eventually was shot and killed. Roll cut 7, Mike.
He brandished a gun, and at what point did law enforcement retrieve the gun and also the magazines from him? Can you offer clarity on
this
where
individual showed up to impede a law enforcement operation and assaulted our officers. They responded according to their training and took action to defend the officer's life and those of the public around him. And I don't know of any peaceful protester that shows up with a gun and ammunition rather than a sign. This is a violent riot when you have someone showing up with weapons and are using them to assault law enforcement officers.
Now, the NRA in particular is blasting Noem for this statement. Okay, and this is what the NRA is saying, and I want to get your take. The NRA is saying, well, no, he was a legal gun owner. He was allowed to conceal and carry. And so, under the Second Amendment, and by the way, liberals now all of a sudden, they love guns. Now they love the Second Amendment. Oh, suddenly now. Like on January 6th, they love the police. One day they love the police. Okay? See, now that law enforcement is getting battered and beaten and fingers bitten off, okay, and getting their faces smashed in, that's okay. Then they're on the side of the so-called protesters. Say, that's okay. No, you can shout all the death threats you want. That's okay. Okay, so, but, let that go, as I like to say. Now, they're all for the Second Amendment. All of a sudden now. Suddenly now, he had a right to have a gun. He had a right to be there with the gun, even though it was loaded. That's a Second Amendment right. Okay? That's, suddenly now, all of a sudden, they're now Second Amendment people. But anyway, the NRA is making the argument, well, no, Kristi Noem is wrong. He had a right to protest. This is their argument. He had a right to attend the protest with an armed firearm, okay, a loaded gun with 2 magazines. And even though he got into a scuffle with police, even though he resisted arrest, even though whatever, the fact that he had a loaded gun is absolutely irrelevant to this. He had the right to own a gun So the fact that she says he attended a protest, not with a sign, but with a gun, shows that he probably had a malicious intent and that it was irresponsible and it was dangerous and it ultimately got him killed. Now they're attacking her, saying that she's undermining the Second Amendment, that he did have, Alex Preddy did have the right to come to that so-called protest with a loaded weapon. What say you? 617-266-6868 is the number. You can also text us 70470. And let me ask you the Kuhner Country poll question of the day. Sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. Should we pass a law making it illegal to bring a gun to a protest? A, yes. B, no. I want to hear from you. Should it be illegal to bring a gun to a protest? A, yes. B, no. Right now it's 45, almost 44, almost 45% yes, 55% no. So should it be illegal to bring a gun to a protest? Yes, a yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER. You can also vote via X, and boy, was I active last night. You can vote there. My handle, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhn as in national ER. Russ in Boston. Thanks for holding, Russ, and welcome.
Good morning, conservative members of the Trump Underground here in Massachusetts.
Russ, I'm dying to get your take on this.
All right.
What do you make of what happened, A, with the shooting, Alex Preddy, and then the aftermath, the rioting, the looting, the insurrection that is now broken out in Minneapolis? Go ahead, my friend.
Well, Jeff, let me start this way. This is disgusting. It is disgusting. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. We know the Democratic Party, the enemy within, is promoting chaos. There's no doubt about that, okay? The evidence is clear. The police are also a disgrace, standing down and not coming to the aid of other law enforcement officers. And what about the retired officers not speaking out? The scumbag politicians cannot affect retired officers at all. The Democratic Party believes in ratcheting up chaos will get them back in power. They are the masters of propaganda, thanks to their comrades in the left-stream media. And if it wasn't for the left-stream media, they would never get away with what they get away with. You can blame the left-stream media, and I blame them for 60 years, Jeff. I'm not a come-lately guy as far as the scumbags in the media are concerned. They are the worst. They're evil. There's no question about that. And never forget, the Democratic Party is not friends of law enforcement at all. Vote for the Democrats, you are equivalent to sheep being herded to the slaughterhouse. You live up to the symbol, the jackass. Welcome to Massachusetts, home of the political jackasses. To many Democrats, you're on drugs. Get off drugs and smarten up. The scumbags in the Democratic Party, American values is not welcoming invaders or protecting them against deportation. And as far as Obama's concerned, he's a Trojan horse. He's a radical bastard. He should shut up, shut up, shut up. And as a patriotic American, I had enough of listening to him. And, Jeff, the enemy within must be defeated at all costs. All right? Now, as far as bringing a gun, first of all, I'm a responsible gun owner, okay? I also have the right to carry, all right? As a responsible gun owner, I am a fool if I go to a protest and I'm going to be an agitator and I'm going to bring a gun with me. You are stupid to do that. I'm sorry. You know, Jeff, this is the first time I've ever disagreed with the NRA, but they're wrong about this one, okay? You know, would I want to outlaw it? Would I want to arrest someone for that? No. But I will want to say, you're stupid if you're going to be an activist and you're going to cause trouble and you bring a gun to a protest.
I'm with you.
I'm sorry.
I'm with on every single point, Russ. I am with you all the way. All the way. And look, I don't want to see, and Russ, thank you again so much for that call, because you speak for so many of us in the audience, so many, listeners in the audience. Look, I'm a big Second Amendment guy. You know that all the way. Now, look, when we have a Kuhner Country rally, that's a peaceful rally. We know that. So, yeah, if someone says, in fact, people tell me we bring guns to the protest. Great. I feel protected. Why? Because it's a peaceful rally. So in case some crazy leftist, an Antifa nut job shows up or whatever, God forbid, we've got people there who can protect me, sorry to be so selfish, and of course everybody else who attends. But we're not talking about that. You've got an ongoing insurrection on the streets, by the way, that he's a part of, Alex Preddy. He's part of this ICE watch system. He's an anti-ICE warrior, in which they're there to confront ICE agents. That's their mission, to track them, follow them, obstruct them, confront them, and engage them. In other words, you're looking for trouble. And then you bring a loaded gun with 2 magazines? And I'm sorry not to harp on this detail, but I think it's very telling. Why would you have no ID on you? By the way, that's illegal then. Bringing a gun now is illegal. You have to have ID. And he doesn't even bring his carry permit, which is also illegal. And then you get involved as ICE is making an arrest of a protester, and you get in the middle of that, and then they start arresting you because now you've obstructed them in the process of them arresting someone else. So they start arresting you. Okay, lines are blazing. Just very quickly. This is from my wonderful sister out in Tucson, Arizona, Jennifer. Jeff, I'm a big Second Amendment supporter. You should be allowed to bring a gun to a protest. However, as a lawful and responsible gun owner, one should have their papers and know how to handle a gun. In other words, he didn't have his papers. He didn't have any identification, never mind his carry permit. And he clearly had no idea how to handle a gun. I mean, I'm sorry, but again, I'm very sorry the man is dead. But he made one stupid mistake after another. Okay, this is a very, very interesting text from 617. By the way, you can text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. Jeff, you know full well that I am a Second Amendment absolutist. Alex Preddy had the absolute right to bring his firearm to a protest for whatever reason he wanted or for no reason at all. That's what a right is. But that being said, think of what happened and now play the imaginary movie in reverse. Now listen to this, because this is very interesting. Starting when he was shot and going back in time to that morning before he left his house. When he was loading his pistol and filling the magazines with more than 50 rounds of ammunition at his command, whom did he fear? The mob? His fellow moonbats? No. He wasn't prepping for defense. He was prepping for offense. And I think that's a very, very important question. Why are you loading your gun, and then loading up 2 magazines, and you've got, over 50 rounds of ammo, and you've got no identification? Why? And you've got the parents so worried about him that they're saying, okay, if you got to protest, protest, but don't engage ICE. Whatever you do, don't. In other words, like, son, you're going to get yourself killed. Don't do it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, in fact, sent me this. He found it on X. It's not his. He says, Jeff, but I found this, and I think it really sums up everything extremely well. By the way, just so that you know, CNN, Sandy made this point to me at the beginning of the show. CNN, MS Now, ABC, CBS, NBC, it's round the clock Minneapolis. Okay, it's around, we've got one of the biggest snowstorms in decades. Millions of Americans are without power. I mean, God forbid, some of them could freeze to death. Okay? And no, it's Minneapolis nonstop, saturation, wall-to-wall coverage. And it's not that they're trying to get the facts. They're not telling, for example, they're not telling their viewers that Alex Preddy was part of an anti-ICE team and that he was he was an activist, part of ICE Watch, or that he donated to Act Blue, or that he was a rabid anti-Trumper, or that he was part of these patrols that were looking to confront and follow and obstruct ICE. No. It's always the ICU nurse. The ICU nurse. They're making it seem like Renee Good. He just happened to be on the street, and he pulls out his phone just to sit to tape what they're doing, to record what they're doing, and then he tries to help this poor woman being pepper sprayed, and before you know it, they shot him, and they killed him. This was an execution. And then wash, rinse, repeat. They just keep repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating. In just 8 hours, this is what my friend sent me from X. The media has gushed more coverage over the quote-unquote ICU nurse than its total combined coverage in the past 5 years of all the women raped by illegals, all the Americans murdered by illegals, and all the American families destroyed by violence from illegals. The media isn't news. It's propaganda. And as 781, in a really good text, Jeff, they keep going on about this Alex Preddy being a nurse. Laken Riley was a nursing student before she was sexually assaulted and then brutally murdered by an illegal alien. Did they protest on her behalf? Did they go around, this poor nursing student, quote unquote? No. Most people don't even know she was a nursing student. Hey, you phonies, you frauds, you. The fact that he was an ICU nurse is irrelevant. He carried a loaded gun. He tried to obstruct ICE. He resisted arrest. He scuffled with ICE agents. And you play games, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. CJ in Boston. Thanks for holding, CJ, and welcome.
Very appropriate, Jeff, coming in here. You play it under pressure because that's what President Trump is right now. He's under pressure right now. And congratulations to the Patriots. And to use a comparison, Trump right now is the quarterback. He's on the 10-yard line, down by 6, 5 seconds to go. Does he pass the ball with the hopes of tying the game and kicking a field goal for the win? Or does he try to run and lose the game? The only thing that he can do here, Jeff, he has to stand up because what he's looking like now, he's looking like a coward to most of America, including the people who stand by him, the staunch Trump supporters who stand by him, because they're asking the question, if this could happen in Minneapolis, what happens if they come into my neighborhood? If the police don't protect me? If the police don't protect me, is our president going to protect me? You talk.
CJ, I'm up against the hard break. Please hang on. You really need to finish your point because I think this is the $64,000 question. Okay, let's go right back to CJ in Boston. CJ, you were saying Trump now risks looking like a coward if he doesn't move in, invoke the Insurrection Act. Furthermore, other mayors, other governors now may follow Minnesota's lead, and then he's got a huge problem on his hands. CJ, please pick up where you left off.
Well, I think he recognizes this after his first 4 years as president, is how they went after him. I'm sure he recognizes what happens. But as he said, they're not coming after me, they're coming after you. Well, they've come after us, Mr. President. So what are you going to do about it? I guess that's the question. As for Alex Preddy, he deserves to get shot, and I'm going to tell you why. As a gun owner for many years, a handgun owner, you get pulled over by the police and you got a handgun in your vehicle. The first thing that you're taught to do is to put your hands on the steering wheel and tell that officer that you are carrying a weapon. Here's an individual that got in an altercation with ICE agents, tried to intervene with a lawful arrest. Why shouldn't he been shot? He should have been shot. As for the mayor, Jacob Frey of Minneapolis, when he's talking about children not going to school and people not going shopping or walking out on the street, he's not talking about illegals. He's talking about the hardworking men and women in Minneapolis who are afraid to leave their houses because they have a police department that won't respond when there's an incident. That's what they're talking about here. President Trump, we all recognize, Democrats and Republicans have recognized what you've done for our country over the last year. The billions that you've taken in tariffs, the deal you made for Greenland, what you've done to Iran, the businesses that you brought into the country, bringing billions here. But you have to ask yourself, what is more important? The safety of one American living in their community is more important than all those things together. If you cannot live safely in your country, why even bother living in this country? What they're trying to do here, Jeff, is that they're basically telling the President of the United States and the American people that we will not follow the rule of law. But as you know, the Democrats always have an end game. And the way that they're gathering these people, now they have Bill Clinton on the bandwagon making statements. They got 200 religious leaders to speak about what's going on in Minneapolis. And you know why that's happening, because they've all taken in money, taking in these illegals as tax-exempt entities. We all know what's going on. You've got people in New York getting together. You have this is an orchestrated revolution, is what it is. And what people are asking is, why hasn't Kash Patel found out where this money is coming from and who is actually supporting these people financially? They can talk about ICE agents wearing masks, but how is it these protesters are showing up with gas masks? Look, Mr. President, all we're asking for is for you to stand up for the rule of law. And when you do so, do the same as you said you would do when you bombed Iran. You go in here full force, not with 1,000 or 2,000 troops. You come in here with 20 or 30,000 troops. What you do is you take over the police departments until they're able to comply. You smother these blue cities that refuse to abide by federal law. And what they are doing is clearly obstruction. And, Frey and Waltz, they need to be arrested and put in jail. And my suggestion is send them to Guantanamo Bay for a while for a vacation. Mr. President, look, you made America great the first time. America is on the road to even being greater. But what America needs now is please make America safe again.
Amen. Look, Trump's got to drop the hammer. We have to have law and order. He has to restore law and order. To me, that's the most pressing need right now of his entire presidency. Because these are neo-Confederates. Let's be very clear. Fry's a neo-Confederate. Waltz is a neo-Confederate. Hochul is a neo-Confederate. Mamdani's a neo-Confederate. Janet Mills now in Maine is a neo-Confederate. Look, you had Obama over the weekend literally write a letter, an open letter, urging all of his supporters, meaning every Democrat, take it to the streets. Do exactly what they're doing in Minneapolis. Become a rioter and an insurrectionist yourself in every city, every state. So they're going for Trump's throat. This is, you're right, CJ, this is becoming now a revolution. And that's why Trump has to nip it in the bud. He can't wait any longer. And thank you so much for that call. Now, look, just super quick, just because CJ touched on it and he's completely right. The head of Border Patrol, okay, Greg Bovino, the Border Patrol commander, held a press conference after the fatal shooting death of Alex Preddy. And he said, look, you want to know what led to his death? It's very simple. Fry and Waltz have told the police, stand down. And this is what everyone is leaving out. That there's no protection for ICE agents as they try to make arrests. And they're being actively told by these two men to obstruct us at every turn, which is a crime. Roll cut 3B, Mike.
And we need state and local help, state and local law enforcement, to help us coordinate to get violent criminals off the streets. Mayor Fry and Chief O'Hare just a few minutes ago did the opposite of that by omitting the fact that the suspect had a gun and magazines full of ammunition. In what looks like a situation, again, where an individual wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement.
Now, how come none of this is being included in in this false media narrative? They don't mention any of this again, over like with Renee Good, how they just covered up that she was part of this anti-ICE network, that she and her wife were there impeding, blocking, obstructing ICE for hours and hours and hours, and that then she tried to run over and actually clipped the Border Patrol agent. She rammed him. She hit him. And that's why he had to fire 3 shots, or else he would have been dead. Notice all of this important context is deliberately being omitted by the media and by the Democrats. Now, listen to Bovino saying, look, what Waltz and Fry and the media are asking you to do is illegal. Organized resistance to a legitimate, lawful law enforcement operation is a federal crime. It's illegal. Roll cut 5. Sorry, my bad, Mike. Roll cut 4, Mike.
I want to reiterate what President Donald Trump, Secretary Kristi Noem, myself, Director Marcos Charles, and so many others have said time and again. If you obstruct a law enforcement officer or assault a law enforcement officer, you are in violation of the law and will be arrested. Our law enforcement officers take an oath to protect the public. We go to work every day to protect our friends, our neighbors, and our fellow citizens. The fact of the matter is that the law does not enforce itself. It takes men and women who are willing to risk their lives to enforce it.
Bingo. You know, they're not Nazis. If you think they're Nazis, you're mentally ill. You live in a parallel, different universe. They're men and women who are federal law enforcement. The law does not enforce itself. You need human beings to enforce it. And when you obstruct law enforcement as they try to go after murderers, gangbangers, child molesters, child rapists, drug traffickers, if you're obstructing and impeding them, it's a crime. And that's why Renee Good got killed. And that's why this idiot got killed. If you're bringing a loaded gun with 2 magazines and your goal is to impede and obstruct ICE, and then you interfere with them, and then you resist arrest, and then as they try to bring you to the ground and disarm you, you're still fighting them. It's not, I don't know how to tell you this. It's not going to end well for you. Like, duh. I'm sorry, like, hello? Does the elevator go to the top? Okay, my friends, the body wasn't even cold. I'm not kidding. They were still trying to save Alex Preddy, and already the talking points were made out. They were circulated, and everyone picked it up. Every single one of them. From Tim Walz to Jacob Fry to Senator Amy Klobuchar to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to the Squad to Barack Obama to CNN, MS Now, the entire media, Elizabeth Warren. It went everywhere. Listen now to AOC. She ran to Jake Tapper, and it was an execution. It was an execution. Roll cut 22, Mike. 22, Mike. 2-2.
Victim, I believe his name is Alex Peretti.
Preddy. Alex Preddy.
Alex Preddy, thank you. Alex Preddy. And immediately preceding that incident, an ICE officer had pushed violently a woman to the ground, and he had come over to help get her up. And that is what precipitated this incident that very quickly led to an execution, a deadly shooting in the street. What we are seeing here is a momentous, pivotal moment for the United States. And I cannot underscore enough how precipitous this moment is.
Take it to the streets. Then Obama issued his statement, take it to the streets. In other words, this is George Floyd on steroids. This was an execution. Gestapo, Nazis, Trump is the Fuhrer, and now they're just, ICE is going house to house, neighborhood to neighborhood, abducting children, kidnapping U.S. citizens, and just shooting them in the head. That's the bull, I can't say it. That's the bull crap, the Bravo Sierra, that they are now peddling relentlessly. Listen now very quick, because I'm going to go to the phone lines. Here's Jasmine Crockett, Texas Democrat, during a debate, Texas primary debate. She wants to run for the Senate. She's running with the talking points. Roll cut 34, Mike.
Yeah, as it relates to the enforcement that we see right now, let me be clear. They are supposed to do immigration and customs enforcement, not going after U.S. citizens, not going after people that are documented. That is not what they are supposed to do, but that is what they are doing. They are turning us into Nazi Germany by saying they're going to go door to door. They are going after people because of their accent or the color of their skin, because this Supreme Court gave them carte blanche ability to do so. So all we want ICE to do is to do what ICE was created to do, and unfortunately, that's not what they are doing.
Mike says I'm in trouble. I speak with an accent. So there you go. And now they're just looping it and looping it and looping it. And now it doesn't matter. You put any Democrat, it's all the same talking points. Abolish ICE, shut down the government, impeach Kristi Noem, and chase ICE and all deportations from every sanctuary state, every sanctuary city. And the question now is, the ball is in Trump's court. What's he going to do? And I could not advise him stronger. Invoke the Insurrection Act, do it now, and put Fry and Waltz in handcuffs. Then this thing is over. This thing takes care of itself. But the longer Trump dithers, the worse this is going to get. Agree, disagree? Tim in South Carolina. Thanks for holding, Tim, and welcome.
Hello, Jeff. Good morning. I'm going to say two things.
Signal app, Signal Gate. That, and I'm going to leave it there because that's something that maybe you can talk about in a future segment. Right now, there are two things happening in our country that are failing. One is called municipal law enforcement, and the other are civilian courts. The civilian courts are corrupt. We know that now. We can't call for arrests because the arrests won't work because the civilian courts are corrupt. You have municipal law enforcement, Minneapolis Police Department. They know now, again, the Signal app, the Signal Gate, they know now that they're working for a criminal organization. They already know it, which makes them complicit, quite frankly. They are complicit in the treason, in the traitorous behavior. These are not protests. They're not rallies. They are riots. They're riots, okay? President Trump, 1 year ago, he spoke to us 1 year ago about a golden age, okay? What is President Trump's next move? He has to have a partnership with the military. What would the military's responsibilities be, Jeff? Everything. Monitor and conduct elections. Take over as the main and primary law enforcement entity in this country. We need to take this country back. If this does not happen, Jeff, there is no golden age. There is no saving America. You had two great callers earlier, Russ and CJ. Listen, those guys, I'm only expanding on their remarks because they're great callers, okay? ICE on the ground, ICE agents, American heroes. However, are they meeting their objectives? Are they accomplishing? Okay? Because of municipal law enforcement and because of the civilian courts, it really sabotages them. Your thoughts?
I couldn't have said it better myself. And look, I just really want to stress this. I said it earlier, but I have to repeat it because it's the biggest story and it's not getting out there. You mentioned Signal Gate, Signal app. On Signal, which is, you can get this on social media, it's an app. This is what the left is using to coordinate all of these riots, all of these people showing up with their stupid whistles and obstructing ICE and provoking ICE. And what we have now found out, it is definitive. There's no getting around it. The lieutenant governor of Minnesota, the woman that works underneath Waltz, who's just as crazy as he is politically, okay? Peggy Flanagan is the one masterminding all of these groups, these far left-wing anti-ICE groups. In fact, it is such a detailed organized, by the way, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They have thousands of people working around the clock. And they've carved up Minneapolis like into their own patrol zones. So you have people saying, okay, you're going to follow ICE, take down their license plates, and follow them in the car. So where are they going? So we're going to know the location of their next possible arrest. You guys set up street patrols. If you see them on the street, you got to signal us right away. Text us right away. Let us know. And then once they start making an arrest, we're going to throw tons of bodies. We're going to block them with cars, even physically now. In fact, Peggy Flanagan said, quote, put your bodies on the line, unquote. In other words, let them beat you. Let them shoot you. Let them kill you if must be. Because our goal is to provoke, escalate, create a riot, create an insurrection, to turn public opinion and especially the media against ICE. Now you're going to say, well, Jeff, okay, I've never heard of Peggy Flanagan. The lieutenant governor of Minnesota is masterminding and guiding like a quarterback, like a coach. She's organizing everything that's happening on the ground. This means that the Minnesota Democratic leadership, the Minnesota state government, Waltz, is involved in this. Fry is involved in this. Klobuchar, Ilhan Omar, this is all being engineered by them. what I'm saying, look, in plain English, it's black letter textbook insurrection. Insurrection. In a way, I'm telling you, that is even more coordinated and more organized than what the Southern fire eaters and the Southern secessionists did in the antebellum South. Many of them didn't even talk to each other. They just kind of did it. You know, Mississippi did it. South Carolina did it. North Carolina did it. Virginia did it. But it wasn't even coordinated among them. This is directly coordinated and collaborated. Like, there's no doubt. So there should be mass arrests. Now, to show you how diabolical and clever they are, okay, I don't want to get too much into the weeds. What they do every day is they then delete all of their messages on this Signal app. Hat tip, by the way, to Matt Margolis, PJ Media. He's the one that broke this. And then you've got Carl Higbee on Newsmax. He also broke it. Okay, so, and like some of them infiltrated. You know, they pretended to be anti-ICE activists. So that's how they got in there. And they're like, every day they delete the previous day's messages. So they're trying not to leave a trail behind. And then what they got in, they're like, well, who's giving the orders? And they're like, oh my God, it's the lieutenant governor. The lieutenant governor is the one giving the orders. And the lieutenant governor is looping in Waltz and Fry as she's giving out the orders. And they're like, what? Everybody thought it was more of a wink-wink kind of an operation. You know, Fry says, take it to the streets. Wink, wink. They take it to the streets. No. They're literally being told in this social media, this apps, through this app system, through direct text messages, you're going to go to this street and this boulevard. You're going to obstruct this ICE operation. By the way, this is why ICE keeps saying we don't even want to tell local leaders we're coming. Why? Because all they do is tip off these agitators and these domestic terrorists to come in and start impeding and blocking us. And then there, by the way, many illegals get away. They're helping them evade ICE. So, look, what you have here is sedition pure and simple. And there, you know, what I find incredible here, Waltz was asked at the press conference, point blank, is there any conditions or circumstances, any, literally, what if the President of the United States calls you and says, there's 10 convicted murderers we would like to deport from Minneapolis. Could you just help us with these 10? No. Waltz's answer, no. In other words, you are not going to get any cooperation from us. I don't care how dangerous, how deadly, how evil these violent, criminal, illegal aliens are. Well, there's your answer. There's your answer. What Waltz and Fry are saying, and they've said it explicitly, we don't recognize federal immigration law. We don't recognize ICE. We don't recognize federal law enforcement. We don't recognize their authority or sovereignty on Minnesota soil. Basically, Minnesota has seceded until we get a Democrat back in power. And I just want, last point, Tim, and I want to come to you. I want you to, don't take my word for it, okay? Here, look it up. What happened in 2016? Trump stunned the world and defeated Hillary Clinton. Riots. There were riots in response to Trump. 2017, remember when he was inaugurated in Washington, D.C.? Riots. 2018, riots. 2019, riots. Okay? 2020, my God, George Floyd, the summer of love. It was rioting all summer long in order to change the outcome of the election. Riots. But then Joe Biden comes to power. 2021, not a single riot. 2022, not a single riot. 2023, not a single riot. 2024, not a single riot. But Trump comes back to power. 2025, riots. 2026, riots. It's planned, it's organized, it's premeditated. And it's coming from the very top. From Obama, through Waltz, through the Democrats, to their shock troops on the ground. Final word to you, Tim. Am I wrong?
Well, you're 100% correct. You know, Jeff, it's almost February. My understanding is, and I hope it's true, that there's a main database and they're recording all of these insurrectionists and they have them all. And that's a positive. However, he's the commander-in-chief. What would be the problem with establishing a partnership with the military to run this country? Quite frankly, Jeff, I'm insulting a bunch of cops out there. Okay? Jeff, it's not working. It's failing. Okay? The corrupt courts, they're failures. Okay? November's coming. Okay? This country is on the brink. And he needs to be proactive right now and be a president and take it back.
Amen. Trump's people are listening. I hope they're not just hearing. I hope they're listening to what you just said. Don't just hear it. Listen. Tim, thank you very, very much for that call. Here, you want to see how rigged everything is? Okay, here it is. Because you're not going to believe me if I told you. Speaking of the failure of municipal police, okay, and that's what you're witnessing in Minneapolis. The cops there are a joke. And the police chief, this guy, Brian O'Hara, what a clown, what a this guy is the biggest joke in the country right now, okay? This guy's a cop? Never mind a police chief? So listen to this. They know that it was a lawful shooting. They know. So Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara is on Face the Nation. And he's asked by Margaret Brennan, well, if there is a thorough investigation and it ultimately proves that, yeah, it was a legitimate self-defense shooting regarding Alex Preddy, would you accept the results? In other words, will you then go and call off the rioters? Because he's not telling them to stop rioting. By the way, even though they're destroying Minneapolis police department cars, vehicles, and they're attacking even Minneapolis police officers. So his guys are taking a beating, and he doesn't say a word. So she's sort of like, okay, let's say there's an investigation, and it exonerates the agents. It was a legitimate, lawful shooting. Listen, this is the police chief of Minneapolis, okay? This guy is, he's boy wonder. He's Mayor Fry's a poodle. Listen to this poodle. Roll cut 17, Mike.
Greater issue is, even if there is an investigation that ultimately proves that at the time of the shooting it was legally justified, I don't think that even matters at this point, because there is so much outrage and concern around what is happening in the city.
That's a jaw-dropping statement. So even if ICE is acting lawfully and legally and validly, it doesn't matter. What matters is the mob, because the mob is angry. And if the mob is angry, you have to appease the mob. The mob hates ICE, so you better get out. Why? Because they've done anything wrong? No, just because the mob doesn't want them. So let me get this straight now. The left-wing mob in Minneapolis is going to determine immigration policy for the United States? Are you? And you're the police chief of a major city? Ay. We're screwed. I'm telling you, we're screwed. Oh my God, are we screwed? Here, you want to see? He's also a liar. Okay, you got to hear this. So Margaret Brennan ask the obvious question, because your officers are doing nothing. They're standing by. You're allowing them to run wild on the streets. It's all caught on video. There's no denying it. And ICE agents, Customs and Border Patrol agents are being beaten. They're being assaulted. Their fingers are being bitten off. They're being chased out of hotels. They're being chased out of restaurants. They're being chased out of the city, essentially. Okay? Were you ever ordered by Fry or Waltz to stand down? It's a yes or no question. Listen to his response. Roll cut 19, Mike.
Were you ever ordered to stand down? Have police been told not to protect ICE?
It is deeply disappointing to have anyone question and disparage the hard work of the men and women of the Minneapolis Police Department. There are 600 police officers that are left here after the destruction of the city in 2020, and they are doing an incredible job. About a dozen of our cops have been injured responding to a lot of the chaos that has resulted on the streets. Our officers respond every time there's a threat to someone's life, to public safety, or destruction in the city. And it doesn't matter whether it's because ICE is there or someone from the community is there. We are doing everything that we can to manage this chaos, but there's only 600 cops here, and there's thousands of immigration agents here.
Right.
Okay. So basically you're telling me your guys are not up to the job. Fine. Invoke the Insurrection Act. By the way, he's lying. I'm telling you, he's lying. Okay. They're not helping anybody that's under attack from these rioters and these insurrectionists. But notice, he never answered the question. Have you been told to stand down? Yes or no? You're disparaging the police. How dare you disparage us? Hard men, hard women, hard-working men and women. You know, we don't do anything. We run. We're like a little chicken, but doesn't matter. We run fast and we run hard. Nobody can turn tail like the Minneapolis Police Department. Oh, my God. We even give the French a run for their money. Nobody surrenders faster than we do. The answer is yes. A non-answer is an answer. If he was told not to stand down, he would have said so. He was told to stand down. Dave, our Western PA constitutionalist correspondent out in the Pittsburgh area, you've been patiently holding. Thank you and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How you doing,
Hi,
buddy?
Dave.
Good. I tried to get into work today, but it's just I'm snowed in, dude. I'm the one to take a chance.
Well, Dave, that's the thing. You know, when you got this kind of snow, seriously, just stay home. Okay, let's go right back to Dave in Pennsylvania. Dave, A, you're a veteran. B, I know you're a big supporter of the Second Amendment. And C, you're a gun owner yourself. So let me ask you the $64,000 question. Was it wise? It maybe was legal, but was it wise for Alex Preddy to bring a loaded gun into a tinderbox situation? What say you?
Not that he couldn't bring a gun, Jeff. It's a Second Amendment right, and I'm surprised the left is pushing that narrative now, too. It's the fact that he challenged the ICE officers, Jeff. You can clearly see in the video, Jeff. You know, he's listening to tampon. Got nothing against the Second Amendment right, Jeff. Here's one thing the media's not telling you. It's one thing to have a magazine full of rounds. I'll use the military terminology. Now, when you rack one and put one in the chamber, when you rack it, that's a civilian term. When you put a round into the chamber, that's when you're asking for trouble, Jeff. You know well, Jeff. I sent you pictures on Messenger. I have a Glock 9mm, blue Glock 19 blue law enforcement pistol. I carry hollow points. I'm a very careful gun owner. I don't rack one or put one in the chamber unless I have to. It takes a second to rack it and put it in the chamber. Him having one in the chamber, Jeff, is asking for trouble. He can have 100 rounds. It doesn't matter the X amount of rounds he has, Jeff. Yeah, maybe that's a little too many. That's a lot of magazines. I have a 15-round mag. I put one in the chamber. I got 14 left in the mag and one in the chamber. I put one in the chamber, Jeff. It means I'm ready to defend myself. I've already got the gun pulled out of my holster, out of my hip holster. That means I'm ready to rock and roll and defend myself, not to hurt anybody, but to quell or stop anything from going on, Jeff. This guy was obviously an agitator. He, and the media is going to spin this. I don't care if he's a nurse. I don't care if Renee Nicole Good was a lesbian. I don't give a rat's rear, Jeff. It's the media adding that to the narrative to feel sympathy. And I don't feel sympathy for these two people, Jeff. I'm sorry. That sounds mean. It's a shame that somebody has to die. But, Jeff, what do you expect when you mess with a rattlesnake? You're going to get bit.
Dave, the fact that he had a round in the chamber and had a loaded gun and was an anti-ICE agitator, an activist, and that he then started to film ICE, but then the second he saw one of his fellow activists getting arrested and pushed on the ground by ICE because she kept obstructing them, he then rushed to her, put himself between the woman, the activist, and ICE, and then they started to pepper spray him, and then they tried to arrest him, and then he began to resist arrest. There's no question. You can see it. Do you do that as a responsible gun owner? Like, as a responsible gun owner, don't you want to avoid conflict? Don't you want to avoid interfering with law enforcement? And, and if you're being arrested, don't you say, I have a gun, I have a gun? Like, if they're trying to disarm you, don't you let them disarm you? Dave, am I missing something?
1,000% right, Jeff. Jeff, all this is the New World Order playing up to the left's mantra. It's New World Order, Mexico, China, whatever you want to put a label on it, Jeff. It's the deep state left starting trouble. They know they're going to be viewed by their cameras, and everything. And as far as President Trump goes, Jeff, he's doing a magnificent job. I don't agree with him on everything. There were some points. You're never going to agree 1,000%, Jeff. But the point is that we got to go forward with this. ICE has got to continue to do their job. Jeff, me and my wife were out over the weekend, and we ran into a Edgewood Township cop, which is like right outside Pittsburgh where I live. And they were at a scene, and we were getting gas to the local convenience store, and I went up to the officer. He looked like a ninja. He had on his mask. It was so cold, the face scarf and all that. And I asked him, and I said, God bless you, buddy, for what you do. Thank you for what you do. And I asked him point blank, I said, you guys support ICE? He says, hell yeah. He was saying F and yeah. He says, I said, it's the mayors and the politicians that are keeping you from doing it. He gave me a high five, Jeff. Okay, so guess what? All you politicians out there, the Tampon Tims, the governor of Pennsylvania, my governor Shapiro, and you know what, Jeff? I got to give my Senator Fetterman credit. He came out against the media in this one. He's really proven to be more conservative than what he really is. I mean, he's a Democrat name, but he's always saying the right thing, and he'll tell the media to take a walk. He don't care, So
he may switch parties if he continues down this road. Dave, I wouldn't be shocked because the Dems want to primary him. The AOCs, the Bernie Sanders, the Jasmine Crockett's, the Mamdanis. They want him out. A, because he's Jewish. Just that alone, they want him out. But also because they think he's too moderate. And they're going to drive him out of that party. He may switch and become a Republican. I would not be shocked, Dave. Dave, as always, really interesting, very informative call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Let me play Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary. Here is what he told. Okay, let me play it on the other side then. Scott Bessent was on with ABC's Jonathan Karl, who is a hack. He's a Democrat hack. But Bessent lets the cat out of the bag. Okay, listen now to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. This was ABC yesterday with Jonathan Karl. As I said, a Democrat water carrier, a hack through and through. And Bessent says, I know Waltz is the problem. How does he know? Listen to this. Roll cut 31. Mike.
Jonathan, it's a tragedy when anyone dies, but I can tell you the situation on the ground there is being stirred up by Governor Waltz. I was out there 2 weeks ago. Governor Waltz declined to provide a security detail for me to go into the Minnesota Capitol with the state police. So he is fomenting chaos because there is substantial waste, fraud, and abuse. My job as Treasury Secretary is to investigate that. And I think that this chaos that's going out there, and again, I am sorry that this gentleman is dead, but he did bring a 9mm semi-automatic weapon with 2 cartridges to what was supposed to be a peaceful protest. I think that there are a lot of paid agitators who are ginning things up, and the governor has not done a good job at tamping this down. Yeah.
Now Jonathan Karl then defends Alex Preddy. Suddenly, by the way, Karl is one of the biggest gun control lunatics in the media. Okay, him and his boss, Stephanopoulos. Every shooting, it does. The guns, always the guns. Get the guns. Now, it was like a miracle. It was like an epiphany. All of a sudden, Karl's like, but the Second Amendment. He had a right to bring a loaded gun to that protest. Watch Bessent turn the tables on Karl. Roll cut 31A, Mike.
For the Veterans Administration, and there's no evidence that he brandished the gun whatsoever. The fact that
but he brought
he was disarmed before
he brought a gun. Have you ever gone to a protest, Jonathan?
I mean, we do have a Second Amendment in this country that.
Jonathan, have you ever gone to a protest?
I mean,
have you gone to a protest?
I mean, no, actually, as a reporter covering it.
Okay, I've been to a protest. Yeah. Guess what? I didn't bring a gun. I brought a billboard.
Okay.
I mean, checkmate. Checkmate. Dave in Boston. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Very good. How are you, Dave?
Jeff, you're missing all the fun this morning. The driving's fine.
Are you actually on the road, Dave?
Jeff, I've been on the road since it was dark out this morning.
You're a braver man than I am. Dave, tell me, how are the roads out there?
You know, Jeff, a little bit of slipping and sliding, but, you know, that's how the song goes during the winter. Just a little bit here, a little bit there.
Well, Dave, hold on, though, but how about all these plow trucks? You know, you had Healy saying there's going to be an army of plow trucks and, you know, these icing trucks, and they're going to be putting salt, forgive me. These salting trucks, the icing trucks. There's going to be salt all over the road. The roads are going to be plowed. That, you know, if anybody wants to go to work today, it's you know, you're going to be driving on hard pavement. Are you driving on hard pavement, Dave? Are the roads plowed? Is there salt everywhere?
Jeff, at the moment I'm on Route 1, and it's pretty clean up here. I'm up in Saugus right now. I got to go up to Lowell and all that fun stuff, and then I got to go up to Salem, New Hampshire. So yeah, right now they're not bad. This morning, yeah, they were pretty dicey when I started out this morning.
Dave, please be safe on the road, my friend, because apparently there's going to be more snow coming. The second wave is about to hit us.
Take some wax on the tires and a few other little doodads and be all set. No problem.
Now, Dave, speaking of a different kind of war, what do you think what's happening in Minneapolis, the shooting of Alex Preddy, and the riots that have now erupted all across that city?
Jeff, you and I both know. You go someplace with a loaded gun, plus he had 2 magazines full. Jeff, you know that he was out to do something before he got shot. Why do you not go to a place that you're carrying 2 packs and you got a loaded handgun at the same time? So Jeff, he was all set to start shooting people. And you know it as well as I do. You don't Jeff, you don't pack a gun and just go into someplace and stay there without doing something if you're going to do it. You know, it makes no sense, Jeff. And like CJ was saying earlier and everything like that, Jeff, he brought it upon himself. He didn't want to listen to his father. He didn't want to listen to his mother. They told him ahead of time, knock off whatever you're thinking and just go if you're going to go. That's probably what they were telling him. But no, He wanted to play tough guy, get 2 rounds back in his pocket, and won a whole clip in the chamber. Jeff, that was his own fault. He could have gone there without even doing anything and just see what's going on and film like he was supposed to be filming. So now they want to play all this other craziness. And you get, this phony mayor saying if ICE comes to Boston and starts doing it, ICE is going to have trouble in Boston. Jeff, I just hope the dentist isn't related to Michelle.
No, she's not. She's not. Emma Wu is not related to Michelle. But no, look, I got to tell you, Dave, if Michelle Wu thinks that we're going to put up with their, similar tactics here, she's got a different story. I'm telling you, we're not going to put up with it. We don't want to see Boston turned into a war zone. And look, you're completely right. You bring a loaded gun, 2 magazines, and to me, the kicker is no identification. He didn't have his carry permit, illegal. No identification, not just that it's illegal. That, to me, goes to a state of mind. And when you start then directly interfering, as ICE is making not just an operation, not just conducting a raid, but an actual arrest, you're begging to be arrested, and he was arrested. And then he resisted arrest. And they're trying to disarm you. And you're violently resisting them as they're trying to disarm you and get your gun off of you? I don't know if he had a death wish. I don't know if he was not right in the head. But I'm telling you, you're asking for trouble. And trouble is what he got. So, no, I'm sorry. I think ICE had every reason to do what they did. And ultimately, stop urging people to obstruct law enforcement. It's a crime. So what they're doing is they're sending these people out, as Peggy Flanagan said, we want you to put your bodies on the line. Notice, it's not the lieutenant governor that's doing that. It's not Tampon Tim. It's not Jacob Fry. It's not Amy Klobuchar. It's not Obama. Notice, he says, take it to the streets. How come you don't take it to the streets, dear leader? Why don't you go nose to nose and bump up against these ICE agents and block them and interfere in their when they're conducting their raids? I'll tell you why. Because it's going to be your ass. And that's the last thing you want, is for you to be thrown in jail or for you to be shot. So you want others to do it. I'm shocked that people can't see through these frauds and these grifters. They're being gaslit. They're being manipulated. They're being brainwashed. And now we're looking at 2 dead. Renee Good, and now this guy, Alex Preddy. And it's only going to get worse. Dave, thank you very much for that call. Okay. Speaking of getting worse, never in my life did I think I would ever play a cut like this in the United States of America. South Africa, yes. Somalia, yes. Ukraine or Russia, yes. But from an attorney general of a state like Arizona, this is Chris Mays on Arizona 12 News. ICE is about to conduct a huge operation in Arizona. How much time left, Mike? What do you mean? Okay, I'm going to play it on the other side, okay? You got to hear it to believe it. She's literally saying that under Arizona's stand your ground law, that both illegal aliens and legal residents can shoot and kill ICE agents if they enter your home, your car, your property in the midst of an operation. Okay, here's a televised interview. This is, remember, the Attorney General for Arizona. Hardcore moonbat, crazy left-wing Democrat, and she's essentially now given the green light. Understand your ground in Arizona. If ICE agents come to make an arrest in your home or pick you up in your car or they're even on your property, blow their head off. Roll cut 35, a Mike.
The other thing I want to bring up with you that I'm worried about that makes Arizona very, very different from almost every other state where this buildup is happening, Bram, is that we're a stand your ground state. We have one of the most expansive stand your ground laws in the entire country that rivals even Florida. We also have a lot of guns in Arizona. We're a gun culture in this state. And, you know, it's kind of a recipe for disaster because you have these masked federal officers with very little identification, sometimes no identification, wearing plain clothes and masks. And we have a stand your ground law that says that if you reasonably believe that your life is in danger and you're in your house or your car or on your property, that you can defend yourself with lethal force.
The interviewer was flabbergasted. His words. He couldn't believe it. So then he said, hold on. Whoa, you're the Attorney General. Are you saying that they have a right to kill masked ICE agents? And her answer is, I'm not saying whether they should or not. I'm just stating the facts. Meaning, we're not going to prosecute you. Understand your ground. As far as she's concerned, you want to blow the head off of an ICE agent? Go ahead. This woman is a freaking lunatic. She's a lunatic. But this is now my fear, is that violence now against ICE is starting to spread, and it's spreading dangerously. Agree, disagree? Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Thank you for taking the call, Jeff.
My pleasure, Dan.
You know, you look at a situation where we're got a basic flotilla going into Iran, protecting its people from a government that's very similar to Minnesota. And we don't seem to have any problems using our might and taking control of a situation over there when we have our own situation in Minnesota, very, very similar. And this is what rolls in my mind. Why doesn't the Patrolmen's Association, the National Police Association, the National State Police Association, there's rules and regulations being in these associations, protecting the citizenry, taking care of the state, making sure there's law and order, and they're violating that. They're violating that in Minnesota. Why can't we bring in people from around the country, other policemen, other state police? Why don't we have our FBI, CIA in there, very, 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 very heavy, and basically exposing the fraud that Waltz and all of these other politicians have gotten themselves into, and start arresting people. We don't necessarily need the National Guard. I think that there's other violations going on, like I said, against the Policemen's Association, where they could step in, or the state police, or even the Border Control, if it's not ICE, if there are other departments in that. But everything, all the assets, everything should be going into Minnesota. People should be getting arrested like Waltz and the mayor, and put this fire out before it turns the rest of the country into a ball of fire.
Dan, I'm with you. Look, I don't care how he does it. He's got to surge police and more assets into Minneapolis. Now, look, this is breaking. Trump now says he's sending Tom Homan, the border czar, to Minnesota tonight. He wants Homan to assess. He hasn't been there yet. He wants Homan to assess the situation on the ground. He wants to talk to all of these ICE leaders, Greg Bovino, the head of Customs and Border Protection. He wants to see for himself what's going on, and then he will make recommendations to Trump. And Trump says, according to him, that he will follow through on what Homan is recommending. So pretty much now He's asking Holman to give him an assessment because he trusts Holman, and he'll make his decision then. I don't know what Holman is going to recommend, but there's no way Holman can be happy with the status quo. There's no way, because this is unsustainable. It's untenable. And so I don't care if it's surging federal law enforcement. I don't care if it's borrowing from other state police or local police. I don't care if it's the Insurrection Act and you send in the military. You've got to send in a lot more assets because ICE is now being overwhelmed.